Hello again, or if you're new here, my name is Kylie or Ghoul Host, and I'm so excited to show you guys one of the most thoughtful and creative gifts I have ever received. It is this miniature library filled with all of my favorite media and little trinkets and things. My best friends in the entire world, Nikki and Em, put this together for me for a Christmas gift. I thought it would be a really fun video to show you guys me putting together the library. I think it'd be a really nice, cozy, spooky hangout, and also talk about some of my favorite media that I love, and maybe we have similar interests. I also would just love to know your favorite media as well. I also really want to start talking about more horror media and such on this page, so I thought this was a really good way to start out by just sharing some of my favorite things. And I'm going to show you some of the things that the library came with. My friends literally made every single piece that you're seeing, which is insane, and they're extremely talented, obviously. But everything came in these little boxes, so it was like a mystery box when I was opening it for Christmas. They're filled to the brim with books and movies and little trinkets. Here are the size of the books. This is just an Edgar Allan Poe book for reference. I will be using tweezers to put everything in because everything is so intricate and tiny. And then they also, of course, you have to have trinkets in your library. So there's some miniature plants. My friend also made a ton of these tiny clay ghosts to put throughout the library as well. I'm so excited to finally decorate it. I've been holding off because I wanted to film it for you guys. Also, here's the library. It does have this glass casing over it, but I wanted to show you the details of the shelving and how it looks on the inside. It has these nice dark blue walls. My friend Nikki, or Knickknack, is the most talented woodworker. Also, this is so thoughtful, I could cry. Let's decorate this mini library.
Getting started was the hardest part because I was mentally organizing how I wanted the shelves to be. I started by adding some fantasy to the first shelf and found my favorite duology in 2024, One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. These books were enchanting, gothic, and unique. The world-building, characters, and magic system made this book stand out to me instead of feeling like another fantasy book series filled with tropes. Laced throughout the series is some very well-written romance that never made me cringe. I eventually gave up on the tweezers for just putting the books in because I realized using my hands was actually much faster. For my next shelf, I was going for a childhood nostalgia theme since there was an entire box filled with Goosebumps. I think Goosebumps is a gateway for children to be scared in a way that's more fun than scary. I will say I still found a few books that genuinely creeped me out as a kid, but I loved the silliness and repetitive formula that made Goosebumps feel comforting despite the spookiness. The colors and all the spines and cover art adds to the nostalgia, and I love how this shelf was looking. I don't remember the last time I looked through an I Spy book, but I think we should bring them back because they seem like a relaxing activity. Throne of Glass, I love you so, even though you're quite long and I needed to take a break for my sanity. I also was terrified looking up art for this mood board because I don't want any spoilers. I took a break after reading Queen of Shadows, and I'm excited to jump back into Empire of Storms. I am very curious if anyone here has tandem read these books. I personally don't think I have it in me, but props to you if you did. I really don't like being left out and have heard that Kingdom of Ash will change my brain chemistry, so I'm looking forward to that. I like reading out of my comfort zone, which has opened up more genres than when I was just reading horror. I was never a romance girly, but I read The 7-Year Slip after only hearing amazing things, and I'm going to have to add to those glowing reviews. Imagine moving into your late aunt's apartment and realizing your sometimes roommate is a charming man from 7 years in the past. This book taught me about love and patience and dealing with grief. I also had butterflies throughout my entire reading experience, and think you should read it too, even if it's not usually your thing. At this point, I had boxes of miscellaneous books, so I was placing it where it seemed to make sense. Scary Stories was a staple for the nostalgia shelf, but I will say that the artwork in these books still scare me. They don't exactly fit the whimsy of Goosebumps, but I'm happy they exist and are still scaring kids years later. I hope you enjoy the tiniest Dungeon Master guide that you ever did see. If there's any piece of media that has changed me, it's The Haunting of Hill House. I think about the show every day, and the book is also beautiful in a very different way. I love how Mike Flanagan took pieces from this book and made it into a devastating family drama. He also took pieces of my heart, chewed them up, spit them on the ground, and then gave me a hug. This horror shelf ended up being very pleasing because it was black, red, and white, which are my favorite colors. The Troop by Nick Cutter is absolutely disgusting. Warning, there are some not so cool animal parts in this book that I did have to skim over, and I knew about them ahead of time, so I wanted to do that for you too. It's a classic Boy Scout trip if everything went horribly wrong and you suddenly couldn't trust a single boy on your troop. It's dark, disgusting, and dreadful. Have fun! For albums, we had to start with some classics. Jonas Brothers and the Beatles, the greatest boy bands of all time. And while I don't currently listen to them much anymore, my friends who made this for me knew me when I loved these bands dearly, and it was sweet to remember the times we had writing Beatles fanfiction, yes, actually, and finally seeing the Jonas Brothers together. We must talk about this miniature record player. The fact that the arm moves and you can take out the tiny record is a detail that has brought me so much joy. I also adore the tiny painted stars. I have to do a shameless plug of Dutch Interior because 1, I genuinely love them, and 2, my boyfriend and our friends are in the band. My boyfriend Shane is a huge reason this channel even exists, from giving me the confidence to start, to helping me film and edit. If you're looking for new music, I promise you won't regret giving them a listen. Alright, would you like to talk about horror movies now? Because this is one of my favorite shelves. I will be honest and admit that I only saw Evil Dead a few years ago, and it was actually Evil Dead 2. It very quickly became one of my favorite horror movies. I've gotten to the point where I'm not trying to be terrified watching horror, and I love having genuine fun, and these movies are exactly that. Sorry, I had to interrupt the horror movies to show you the tiniest versions of the prequels. Please keep any negative comments to yourself. You're not going to change my mind about these movies. It Follows is one of those movies that is very hard to describe because it's going to sound silly. However, this movie will always be one of my favorites. I feel like we have to beg for unique horror these days, and It Follows feels so refreshing and new. I'm looking forward to They Follow and hope Disasterpiece will be doing the score for it as well. Without Scream, there is no Ghoul Host. I watched Scream at a sleepover when I was in 6th grade, and I loved it so much that my friend showed me 2 and 3 as we pulled an all-nighter to watch them. The friend that showed me Scream was either named Kaylee or Kylie, and she lived in Midland, Texas around 2008 and loved horror and owned snakes. I don't know where she is these days, but I think about her often. If anyone knows who this could be, let her know that I thank her forever for introducing me to horror. I never read sci-fi. I didn't think it was something I would particularly enjoy, and I'm glad that I gave it a chance because Project Hail Mary is one of my favorite books of all time. If you haven't read it, I need you to go in completely blind. I had no idea what this book was even about going into it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I was so shocked where this book ended up going, and it was such a magical experience. My favorite book of all time is Six of Crows. I picked it up a few years ago and found my love for reading again, and especially a new love for fantasy. I think about these characters so often and the tremendous love that they all have for each other. It's YA, so it's an easy read, but certainly not a dull one, and not a day goes by where I don't think about Kaz Brekker. Now that all the books were mostly in place, it was very satisfying to push them back and adjust them. I definitely ended up moving things around a bit so I could make space to decorate with trinkets. You can't have a bookshelf without trinkets of your favorite things cozied up with your books. I had boxes full of little ghosts and plants, a reading bench, some hand-knitted pillows in a basket, and no library is complete without a ladder to reach your highest shelves. I started by placing a mirror behind a couple of candles and the cutest little pumpkin to add some color and spookiness. I placed the crystal ball that my friend made with a marble on my Goosebumps shelf because green decor just makes sense. Of course, I had to add little ghosts to keep my books company and a mug for drinking tea on rainy days. Some plants to add more color and texture and to make the library look more lived in. I wish I could shrink myself down and hang out in here for hours with all of my favorite things. Here is the finished product, something I will cherish for the rest of my life. Nikki and Em, thank you for knowing me so well that you could create such a thoughtful gift. Stranger came over to join and help so you could see how tiny this library actually is. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me put the miniature library together, and I of course have some questions for you. I would love to know your favorite book, movie, and album, or your top 4 of any of those things. I love getting to know people, and I think your favorite media can say a lot about you.
It's finished. We did it. I'm really proud of how it turned out, and it took a lot less time than I thought it was going to. And I absolutely love it, and I will cherish this forever.